Hey everybody, this is Chris with OpsEd, and today I'd like to talk about the tier list for the sniper rifles in Black Ops 3. Just a reminder, Tier 4 is going to be the worst, with Tier 1 being the best. Now, seeing as there are only 4 sniper rifles, we don't have any of them in Tier 4. They're all a little bit better than that. In Tier 3, we do have the PO6, that is the Charge Burst Sniper Rifle. It shoots a 3-round burst after a small delay. And it's that small delay that really sets it just below everything else. The 3-round burst is actually extremely effective. It kills enemies very easily, and it's especially good at getting collaterals if the enemy happens to line up for you. But that delay makes it very difficult to use, and it's going to be not great in a lot of situations, so it's not quite as good as some of the others. In Tier 2, we do have the Locust and the Drakken. The Locust is actually my personal favorite sniper rifle because of its really quick fire rate and its one-shot kill to the chest and above. However, it's not quite as good as the SVG for a couple of reasons. The Drakken is a sniper rifle that thinks it's an assault rifle. With this semi-automatic and very large clip, the Drakken is ridiculous at just spamming at targets from a ridiculous range. It's a 2-shot kill to the body and 1 shot to the head, so it is very, very deadly. This gun is particularly annoying to play against on the PC side where players are really, really accurate with it. It's really interesting, it's fun to use, it's just not as good as some of the other snipers because you do have to spam it and you are going to be a massive target to the enemy. In Tier 1, of course, that leaves the SVG 100. This is a 1-shot kill to the hip and above. It has a smaller clip and lower fire rate than the Locust or, of course, the Drakken. But with that 1-shot kill from the hip and above, it is much easier to get those 1 hits and to just really kill the enemy. This will shut down entire teams as long as you're accurate. That does make it the best sniper rifle, which is probably why it is the last sniper rifle to be unlocked. Then moving on to the optics, we of course have the 4 optics, and we're going to consider the default sights because they're different than iron sights, and I think they should be considered as well. Now, none of them are going to be in Tier 4. I think they're all a little better than that. In Tier 3, we do have the recon sight, not because it's bad, but because it is just a worse Varic sight. It does nothing that the Varic doesn't do. That means, of course, in Tier 2, we have the Varic sight and the default sights. The Varic sight is interesting because it allows you to toggle between a larger zoom like the default sights and then a shorter zoom similar to the recon sight. So once you get used to toggling back and forth, it's really interesting and can be useful in many, many different situations. The default sight is also going to be in Tier 2 because it allows you to see at the max distances and allows you to see from a really long distance and still be accurate while also saving you that point to use elsewhere in your build. In Tier 1, that of course leaves us the thermal sight and the ELO sight. Now the thermal sight is my personal favorite sight. It highlights enemies in red. It allows you to acquire targets very, very quickly. It has a pretty decent zoom, so you can get accurate, but it's not so much that you lose all of your peripheral awareness. And even if someone's using cold-blooded to offset your thermal optics, they're still relatively easy to spot, so you're not going to find yourself at a massive disadvantage even when people are running cold-blooded. And then, of course, there is the ELO sight, which is basically like putting iron sights on your sniper rifle, except you have that red dot. This allows you to offset all of the problems you're going to have with peripheral vision, and you're going to still be really aware of your surroundings, but still be really, really accurate, even at a large distance. So as long as you can see players and you're okay with not having that zoom, the ELO sight really, really counters a lot of the issues you would run into with a sniper rifle usually. And lastly, we're going to move on to the attachments. In Tier 4, we are going to have the Ballistics Cpu and the Full Metal Jacket. The Ballistics Cpu simply isn't going to be that useful because you're not going to be aiming down sights very often. It does reduce the weapon way when you're aiming, but you already have that shift to steady your aim, and in Black Ops 3 with all the wall running and boost jumping, you don't want to be hard scoping for too long, or else you're going to get flanked by somebody you can't see while aiming down the sights. Full Metal Jacket is simply not going to be that great because you already have massive penetration with the sniper rifles. You already can shoot people through walls relatively easily, so getting a little bit more than that isn't going to be that helpful, and with the sniper rifle you can't really spam too much into the wall hoping to wallbang somebody. Then in Tier 3 we do have extended mags and fast mags. Neither of these are going to be that great because you're not going to be running into ammunition issues with them. You're not going to be spamming your whole clip and then having to reload really quickly. You're not going to be benefiting too much by getting a couple extra bullets in your gun. So they're just not going to be that useful. Of the two, I think Fast Mags is a little bit better, but not by enough to push it up into another tier. In tier 2, we do have the stock. Now, the stock is probably one of my favorite attachments, but like I said earlier, you're not going to be aiming down sights very often with the sniper rifles, which means the stock isn't going to give you an awful lot of use. The reason it is in tier 2 is it has a pretty noticeable effect. It does increase your mobility, and most importantly, if you have the ELO sight on your sniper rifle, it does allow you to walk around and use it a lot more like you would an assault rifle in those situations. Then moving on to tier 1, we of course have rapid fire and the suppressor. Now, rapid fire is pretty obvious. It actually significantly increases the rate of fire on all of these sniper rifles. It's particularly useful on the Locust, as it really lets you spam those shots off really quickly, which can surprise opponents and get some shots off that you otherwise wouldn't. And then lastly is the suppressor. Now, this might come as something of a surprise, because we've spoken about how the suppressor is really bad on all of the other guns in the game. On the sniper rifles, though, it's actually really, really good. The range reduction is hardly noticeable. You still get those one-shot kills where you want them, and it just keeps you off the minimap. So the suppressor is actually something you're going to want to put on your sniper rifle most of the time. It's really good, and you're not going to notice much of a difference in terms of your damage with a suppressor on there versus not a suppressor on there. Thank you for watching. This has been Chris with Offset, and we'll see you next time.